The first match between the Springboks and the All Blacks is nearly here, and in this video I am going to be giving my starting XV that I would love to see New Zealand use up against the Springboks. Now, there are some big decisions that have to be made for the All Blacks. There are some fantastic options, some informed players, but also there are some that maybe haven't quite been able to have the season start that they would have liked to, which I have slightly kept in mind when choosing my starting 15. But we will start in the front row. Number 1, Tamaiti Williams. Number 2, Cody Taylor. And number 3, Tyrell Lomax. Now, I do believe this is exactly what the All Blacks will actually be going with as well. There is no Ethan de Groot, that is due to a neck injury. Tamaiti Williams in that second game up against Argentina, the scrums were extremely dominant. He is a massive individual. Him versus Franz Malherbe, I think, is absolutely insane to think about, because those two normally are used to going forward in the scrums. They weigh a lot in the nicest way possible. They are very heavy, and that is why I would have both of them in those front rows. Tyrell Lomax, I don't think he's really done too much wrong in that 3 jersey. I think he's still the front runner in terms of the options that they have. And then Cody Taylor, with that Asafa more impact off the bench, I think is a strong combo for the All Blacks. Moving on to the locking duo. Now, this is where I have got a little bit controversial. Number 4, Tupavai. Number 5, Sam Darry. Now, Scott Barrett, it has been said that he will be available to play up against the Springboks. There is still a little bit of doubt, though, about whether or not he will be 100%. I just feel, even though at the start of the All Blacks season he was announced as the captain, he hasn't really found his best form since being given that captaincy. I think Tupavai, he was very solid in both games up against the Argentines, and Sam Darry has taken to international rugby like a duck does take to water, so I don't see him getting taken out of this lineup. If Scott Barrett does go in, I would assume that that would be at 4, and I would still have Sam Darry in the starting side up against South Africa. He has got the size and the physicality that I believe is needed up against a side like the Springboks, but I would possibly have Barrett off the bench for myself if I was in charge of this All Black side. Moving on to the loose forward trio. Number 6, this is where I have stuck with Ethan Blackadder. Now, in the first match up against the English, it was Samapeni Finau. He was originally chosen as the blindside flanker for the All Blacks moving forward, but after 2 lackluster performances from him, Ethan Blackadder slowly started getting more minutes. Razor is a massive fan of him, and his work rate so far throughout the games we've seen of Ethan Blackadder, I believe, is enough to put him in the starting side up against South Africa. Number 7, this is where I have got Dalton Papali'i, and then number 8, Ardie Savia. So no Sam Cane, no Wallace Satiti, no Luke Jacobson, but I feel like these 3 that I've got can get the job done. They have to bring physicality, though. That is one big thing that the Springboks will certainly have that maybe New Zealand has lacked throughout their first games under the Scott Robertson era. Those loose forwards bringing a bit of muscle into the breakdowns and trying to force their opposition backwards. Because if they can do that up against South Africa, they can do it up against pretty much any side in World Rugby. But looking through at the back line now. Number 9, I have got Cortez Ratama in my starting XV, with number 10 being Damian McKenzie. Now, I believe the All Blacks, there is a chance that they go with TJ Perenara for that experience, for the box kicking. But I think Cortez Ratama is just as strong, if not stronger, in terms of what he can offer for the All Blacks in that starting lineup, and partners with Damian McKenzie very well, both men coming from the Chiefs. And Ratama just seems to have a little bit more X factor, I would say, than TJ Perenara. It's a big task to go head-to-head with South Africa, and one of the few starts that Ratama has had for himself. I believe his only other was up against the Fijians, actually ended up injured in that game, but I would have him starting alongside Damian McKenzie, who also needs 2 massive games up against the Springboks here. In the centres, this is where I've gone once again very risky. Now, this is my XV, not what I think that the All Blacks will go with. I believe the All Blacks are going to go with Jordie Barrett number 12, Rieko Ioane number 13. And in this kind of game, it would make perfect sense. They've had a bit more time together throughout the year, playing in that centre pairing. If you were to base it, though, off form at the end of Super Rugby Pacific, this combination that I've gone with here, I believe, should have been the one that they did end up trying. That is number 12, Anton Leonard-Brown, number 13, Billy Proctor. Now, like I said, I don't think they're going to do this combo. And I also feel like it's pretty optimistic to see either of those two that I've gone with in the starting lineup for the All Blacks, definitely in that first match up against South Africa. But Anton Lienert-Brown has been in some tremendous form. He has to be somewhere in this 23-man side. If he isn't in the starting lineup, he can still bring that impact off the bench. Billy Proctor had a great game up against Fiji in his All Blacks debut. We haven't seen the man since. Now, I think he was dealing with a few injuries. I want to say that's behind him now. But it just seems like at the moment, that Jordie Barrett-Rieko Ioane combination, as strong as it has been in the past, I think that Barrett's almost, from that last game up against Argentina, played himself into a starting position. But I don't think Rieko Ioane is just there yet. So that is why maybe I would even consider a Jordie Barrett 12, Billy Proctor 13 combination for the All Blacks. I know that something they are looking at, though, is defence. And normally Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane in that midfield combination, they do offer you a lot defensively. So maybe that's why they're not willing to take that risk of Anton Lienert-Brown and Billy Proctor, just because they haven't had enough time to build that chemistry between those two. But moving on to the back three now. Number 11, this is where I would play Caleb Clarke. I feel like they might go with Mark Talia, but I do see Clarke as the better option, definitely if he's going head-to-head with Cheslin Colby. Talia's defence has been questioned, so is Clarke's to a certain extent, but I just think Caleb Clarke, when it comes to getting under those high balls, can offer you a lot more than Mark Talia can. Now, Mark Talia will beat defenders all day. That is what we've come to expect from that man when he steps onto the field for the All Blacks, whether that is 11 or 14. But Caleb Clarke, for me anyway, I feel like he's just got a little bit more of an all-round game at the moment, which could be massively beneficial for the All Blacks up against the Springboks. Number 14, this is where I have gone with Will Jordan. Seems like a very viable option for that right wing side. They've also got a few other options for that jersey, though. You've got Sevu Reece, I've left out of my starting side. You've got the option of shifting Mark Talia from left wing to right wing. But I think with Will Jordan's try-scoring prowess, 33 matches, 33 tries, he's got to be in a starting lineup somewhere. I know people are still asking to see him at number 15, but Beauden Barrett's recent form, I believe, keeps him in that 15 jersey, which is exactly what I would have in my starting XV. But you can't afford to not have Will Jordan out there on the field somewhere as well. But Beauden Barrett at 15, matching up more than likely with Willie Leroux. Makes perfect sense to have the two experienced 15s going head-to-head. Will Jordan more than likely marking up with Kurtley Arendse, two men who have brilliant try-scoring records. Kurtley Arendse, he's played 2 games up against Australia and he's scored 5 tries. Will Jordan, like I mentioned, 100% when it comes to amount of matches played with the amount of tries that he has been able to score. And I believe Kurtley Arendse pretty much falls into that exact same boat. So it could be a try fest out on that wing. Both men will have a decent crack of scoring one for themselves, but that is my All Blacks XV that I would go with up against South Africa. Like I mentioned, there are a few positions that I believe could get slightly modified in terms of who is in that jersey. Some would say Sam Cane should be in the starting lineup. Others would say TJ Perenara, even though he hasn't had his greatest games throughout 2024, still with that huge amount of experience, and his kicking could get him in the starting side with the impact player of Cortez Ratama making his way off of the bench. But I am curious to know who you guys would go with in your starting XV. If you were coach, who would you start in these very important games up against South Africa in South Africa? That is something that just adds a little bit more of a challenge for the All Blacks, but they normally don't shy away from one. So that is why these 2 matches up against the Boks are going to be absolutely awesome to witness. But we will be doing the live commentary on the channel for the game, so be sure to check that out. Also, when the All Blacks do announce their lineup for the first and second match, we are going to have the video out on the channel as well. But I do thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all for the next one.